Grandma, Mommy says her tummy hurts. Help.
Around 9 p.m., I held my breath as I received a call from my 5-year-old granddaughter. "Can I talk to Mommy?" When I said that, my daughter, on the other end of the line, said,
"It hurts. It hurts, Mom."
My daughter's voice sounded weak. For my usually strong and resilient daughter to say this, the pain must have been severe.
I called Dad too, but he said he's drinking and told me to do whatever I want.
It's just unbelievable to leave behind his sick wife and toddler and to go drinking. I was utterly appalled at what kind of person he could be, but there was no time to dwell on that. I quickly called an ambulance, and I hopped into a taxi and headed straight to my daughter's house. After about 15 minutes, I arrived at my daughter's house. Inside, despite it being winter, there was no heating on, and the room was cold. My daughter, perhaps trying to bear the pain, was curled up and whimpering, while my granddaughter was crying and gently stroking her back. "Hang in there," I said, embracing my daughter, and she whispered,
"Please take care of my child."
Then, she lost consciousness. "Where's the ambulance? Hurry up and help my daughter." After about 5 minutes, the ambulance finally arrived, but it felt like a very long time. And on that day, I lost my beloved daughter. I'm Nancy, a 62-year-old housewife. My husband, whom I supported for many years, passed away 3 years ago, and now I spend my days feeling lonely. However, my daughter Meg lives about a 15-minute drive away, and she often comes to visit with my granddaughter Ashley, which helps ease the loneliness a bit. My 5-year-old granddaughter, who resembles my daughter when she was young, is obedient, kind, and really adorable. Meg's husband is named Thomas, and they met as colleagues at the company where she worked and got married. He gave off an impression of being dependable and manly, so I thought he was the perfect person to entrust my quiet daughter to. However, looking back now, I realize I should have taken more time to truly understand his character. After getting married, at Thomas's insistence, Meg chose to become a housewife and support her husband. They seemed to be living happily for about a year after their marriage. However, things started to change in Thomas's attitude around the time Meg got pregnant and Ashley, my granddaughter, was born. He became what you might call a husband wears the pants, acting arrogantly and leaving all childcare responsibilities to Meg while he did nothing, which is quite uncommon behavior among young people these days. One day, my daughter came over looking lonely and shared her concerns with me.
"Mom, I might not be able to come over as often as before."
"What's wrong? Is something going on?" It turns out that the amount of money my son-in-law gives for expenses keeps decreasing, and now he only gives $500 a month. With my granddaughter Ashley growing up rapidly, the cost of food is increasing, and she also needs to buy clothes for her. So, my daughter has been cutting down on her own food expenses, but now even the bus fare to come to our house has become a burden. Come to think of it, she always used to eat voraciously whenever she came over. Yet strangely, she seemed to be losing weight every time we met. It felt odd to me. I asked her about it many times, but no matter how many times I asked, my daughter insisted that everything was fine. From her demeanor, I secretly worried about her. Since then, I started giving her money and even delivering food to her. However, it was challenging to intervene in their marital issues, so all I could do was to encourage her to contact me anytime she needed. But, I should have taken on the role of the villain and spoken up to my son-in-law at that time. If my husband were alive, he surely would have done so. I still deeply regret my decision at that time, and it weighs heavily on my heart to this day. One cold winter night, around 9 p.m., I received a call from my 5-year-old granddaughter.
Grandma, Mommy says her tummy hurts. Please help.
When I asked to talk to her mom, my daughter asked for help in a weak voice. Given that my daughter has always been resilient since she was young, she must be in a lot of pain.
Dad went out drinking. I called him, but he's not coming home.
My granddaughter told me that. Despite her young age of 5, she's trying her best to help her mother. I felt frustration towards such careless behavior from my son-in-law. But now is not the time for dwelling on that. Grandma's coming right away. Everything will be okay. I arranged for an ambulance, hopped into a taxi, and arrived at my daughter's house in about 15 minutes. The ambulance hadn't arrived yet, and as I hurried into my daughter's house, I noticed there was no heating on despite the cold winter weather. My daughter was suffering on the floor, while my granddaughter, in her pajamas, was crying beside her, saying,
Mommy, Mommy.
A 5-year-old child wouldn't have been able to turn on the heating. I took off my coat and put it over my granddaughter to keep her warm. Granddaughter, Grandma, please help Mommy. I lifted my daughter up in my arms. Hang in there, I said to her.
Please take care of my child.
After she said that, she stopped responding to my calls. She became breathless, and even though I wasn't a doctor, it was obvious we didn't have much time. After about 5 minutes, the ambulance finally arrived. It was only 5 minutes, but it felt incredibly long, and I was terribly anxious. In the end, my daughter was taken to the hospital unconscious. During that time, I tried to contact my son-in-law multiple times but couldn't reach him. What on earth is he doing at a time like this? Thanks to the dedicated efforts of the doctors at the hospital, Meg regained consciousness temporarily. Meg? Can you hear me? Both Ashley and I are here.
Mommy, Mommy.
Mom, please, help Ashley. Take her away from Thomas and the diary.
Eh? What? I couldn't quite catch it clearly, so I waited for my daughter to speak again, but she lost consciousness once more, and that was the last time she woke up. They told me that when she fell down the stairs, she suffered a severe blow to her abdomen, causing internal organ damage. If the treatment had been administered a bit earlier, she might have survived. In front of my daughter, who would never smile again, I was overwhelmed with grief to the point where I couldn't stand. And my daughter's last words, "Help Ashley, take her away from Thomas and the diary," got me worried.
Grandma, Mommy won't wake up. Mommy.
All I could do was to hold Ashley tight as she refused to leave her mother, whose body is now cold. After a while, when my granddaughter calmed down, I gently asked her what had happened. Apparently, Meg had been teaching Ashley how to use the speed dial on the phone to call her dad, Grandma, and her close friends in case of an emergency. You did so well. I'm so proud of you. I praised my granddaughter for being able to make the call, but Ashley just shook her head and kept crying. And gradually, through Ashley's words, the shocking truth began to unfold. I was left speechless by what I learned. What should I do now? But for Meg and Ashley's sake, I can't just keep grieving. The next morning, I finally received a call from my son-in-law on my daughter's phone.
Meg? Does your stomach ache better?
She passed away.
Huh? Did she? Is this Nancy? Are you saying Ashley passed away?
Son-in-law misunderstood and panicked, thinking that my granddaughter had passed away. It's not Ashley, it's my daughter Meg who passed away. When I told my son-in-law, he was momentarily surprised, but then he muttered.
Thank goodness it wasn't Ashley.
The way he spoke, as if his own wife didn't matter at all, made me tremble with anger. I will never forgive him. I waited for a time when my son-in-law wasn't around and used my daughter's key to enter the house. I searched for my daughter's diary and found it in a drawer of the closet. As I read its contents, I was shocked and my anger grew even stronger. 3 days later, my son-in-law greeted the mourners at the funeral with a straight face, shedding fake tears.
It's all my fault for not being there because of work. I'm sorry, Meg.
My son-in-law, lying shamelessly about being at work when he was actually out drinking. The mourners seemed to sympathize with Thomas, saying it's a pity for him to suddenly lose his wife even though their daughter was still young. During this time, Ashley refused to go near her father and insisted on staying close to me, never wanting to leave my side. Poor thing, she clenches her fists with tears in her eyes. Even though she's only 5 years old, it seemed like she understands that she'd never see her mother again. Perhaps Thomas was asked by the attendees about why his daughter wasn't by his side. He approached us, but as soon as he did, Ashley stiffened and clung to me tightly.
Come to Daddy.
No, Daddy is scary.
As my son-in-law forcefully pulled Ashley's arm and she resisted, I pulled my granddaughter closer to me. If she doesn't want to go, there's no need to force her.
Nancy, I'd appreciate it if you didn't spoil Ashley. I'm her father.
Feeling the chillingly cold glare in his eyes, I clenched my fists, knowing I couldn't let Ashley anywhere near Thomas. I firmly retorted. Just before Meg passed away, she told me to help Ashley and to keep her away from you. Why do you think she said that?
What?
Thomas gasped for a moment and then looked at me with a probing gaze.
Meg said that? Did she say anything else?
Perhaps he was worried about the truth coming to light, but I felt it was too soon to reveal everything. I decided to expose his lies in front of more witnesses. At that moment, the start of the funeral was announced by the officiant, and Thomas reluctantly returned to his seat. Ashley stayed close to me, refusing to leave my side, and sat next to me. Looking around the funeral hall, I noticed many colleagues from the company where Meg had worked before she got married to Thomas. They were all genuinely saddened to bid farewell to Meg. The way my daughter had always treated everyone with kindness was remembered, and tears welled up once again. Why couldn't I have helped her sooner? I feel so powerless. I was frustrated and overwhelmed, and I felt like I was about to go crazy. But then, my granddaughter Ashley tightly held my hand. Amidst the sadness, the funeral proceeded, and my son-in-law stood up to deliver the eulogy.
My wife fell down the stairs and suffered a severe blow to her abdomen. I can't believe something like this could happen from such a small accident. We were a happy couple, and never had a single argument. Meg, please come back.
He put on a passionate performance, his face turning red, his voice trembling, and tears streaming down his cheeks. His convincing acting moved the mourners to tears as well. Then, Ashley, who had been sitting quietly beside me, suddenly stood up and pointed at her father.
Liar. Wasn't it Daddy who kicked Mommy's tummy?
Ashley clenched her lips tightly, glaring at Thomas, but tears streamed down her cheeks.
Huh? What's going on?
But he said she fell down the stairs, right?
There was a murmur among the mourners. It was understandable. What Ashley had just said was completely different from what Thomas had told us. Suddenly faced with this unexpected turn of events, everyone seemed bewildered. Thomas, in response to Ashley's words, hurriedly tried to cover up the situation.
Ashley, are you upset because Mommy was gone when Daddy was at work? But you shouldn't tell lies.
Daddy kicked Mommy and pushed her down the stairs. Then Daddy went somewhere. After that, Mommy cried saying her tummy hurt. Really, really hurt.
Yeah, that's right. Mommy's tummy hurt when Daddy wasn't there, so it's not Daddy's fault.
I called Daddy to help Mommy, but he said he was drinking and told me to do whatever I want. So, I called Grandma.
Ashley, don't say anything more.
Thomas, noticing the rising voices of condemnation from the attendees, hurriedly approached Ashley and tried to forcibly silence her. I stood in front of my granddaughter and glared at Thomas.
Old lady, stay out of this. Back off.
He tried to push me aside, but I pulled out a notebook in front of him. It was Meg's diary. In this diary, it's written what you have done. Everyone, please listen. As I sought permission from the attendees to start reading, Thomas tried to intervene, but some of Meg's colleagues restrained him. I borrowed the microphone from the host and began reading meticulously, ensuring not to miss a single word. There, it was passionately detailed how she had been subjected to verbal abuse from her husband on a regular basis, how she had not been provided with adequate financial support, and how she had been suffering. Additionally, it was written that whenever Thomas was in a bad mood, he would hit or kick her, resulting in constant injuries. The description of such suffering was so painful to read that it became almost unbearable. It seems that Meg wanted to divorce, but even if she wanted to, Thomas threatened her, saying he would never let go of Ashley, leaving her unable to do anything. At the end, there were words written with trembling hands. It hurts. Mom, help me. I couldn't stop crying. The harrowing contents of the diary prompted cries that sounded almost like screams from Meg's close acquaintances. Meg had endured this in silence, unable to confide in anyone about the truth.
Shut up. I was just disciplining my wife. It's Meg's fault for not being able to handle household chores properly while raising the child.
Didn't you use her as a punching bag for your stress? I know you didn't even provide enough living expenses.
I was giving her $500 a month. It's Meg's fault for not being able to manage it.
You can't live on just that. She was even sacrificing her own meals, yet you were doing whatever you like.
It's my money, so I can go wherever I want, right?
Only $500 for living expenses.
Hitting and beating as discipline.
Was he in a pub?
There's a murmur spreading among the people around, and everyone is giving Thomas suspicious looks, whispering to each other. He started to lose control, and then he exploded.
I'm not at fault, I'm telling you. I just gave her a little kick, and she fell down the stairs on her own.
You're admitting to it yourself, aren't you?
I don't know. I went drinking right away, and I wasn't there when she died, wasn't I?
If you had taken her to the hospital immediately, she might have been saved. I'll never forgive you. With no one siding with him, Thomas began to cry pitifully. Someone among the attendees must have made a call, as the sound of police sirens echoed through the venue. Thomas tried to run away in a panic, but he was restrained by relatives and handed over to the police. You did so well, Ashley. I said as I hugged Ashley, who was sobbing uncontrollably. The police, after examining my daughter's body before burial, found evidence. Taking a life is a serious crime, and given Thomas's lack of remorse, it's unlikely he'll be released from behind bars anytime soon. Ashley is now living with me. My granddaughter is gradually regaining her composure and we're starting to see her smile again. It's heartening to see Ashley's smile, and I'm focusing on improving my health every day to ensure I can raise her well. I would like to live a peaceful life with Ashley from now on.
My heartfelt condolences for the loss of my beloved mother-in-law. As I was preparing to attend the funeral, my phone suddenly rang. It was my husband, urgently instructing me.
Do not come to the funeral home. Go back to your parents' home immediately.
Confused, I followed his instructions and returned home. Later, my husband, who had joined us, revealed the existence of my estranged and conniving sister-in-law, Sophia. She callously asked about the inheritance, aiming to exploit my late mother-in-law's assets. Determined to protect my mother-in-law's honor, I resolved to confront Sophia. Our intense verbal battle ultimately led to her confinement behind cold, dark bars. I am Olivia Smith, a perfectly ordinary housewife. I am happily married to my husband, Michael, who works as a company employee. By the way, it seems that many women struggle with how to interact with their husband's relatives after marriage. Particularly, there are rumors of bitter conflicts between daughters-in-law and mothers-in-law. I, too, used to hold such a murky image. However, fortunately, I've been able to maintain a harmonious married life in that regard. Specifically, I share a close bond with my mother-in-law, Nancy. For instance,
Olivia, how does this cardigan look? I knitted it, thinking it would suit you.
Me? Thank you. The color is adorable, and you're quite skilled at knitting.
I'm glad you like it. The weather is getting colder, so take care of your health.
Certainly. Oh, by the way, would you be willing to teach me knitting sometime? And that's how it goes. Nancy's smile always radiates warmth and kindness. I've relied on her assistance countless times, and she has even provided financial support. I love my gentle mother-in-law, considering her like a second mother. However,
Olivia, it seems that Mom passed away at the hospital.
the news of Nancy's passing arrived just the other day. I was shocked by her death and couldn't eat for a while. But this is a reality I must accept. Reflecting on it, Nancy had been battling terminal cancer for several years, enduring continuous chemotherapy treatments. Her struggle must have been incredibly difficult. Whenever I visited her, she would greet me with a smile. I'm sure she pushed herself to appear strong and not burden us with worry. For her sake, I can't keep crying forever. Let's bid her farewell with at least a smile. With that thought in mind, I prepared to attend my mother-in-law's funeral at my in-laws' home. At that moment, my smartphone, which was placed on the table, began to ring. Curious, I glanced at the screen, and there it was, the caller ID displaying my in-laws' number. Screen. Perhaps my husband, who had gone ahead for the funeral preparations, forgot something. I picked up the phone with a light-hearted feeling. However,
Olivia, is that you? Do not come to the funeral home. Go back to your parents' home immediately.
his urgent voice echoed from the phone. What? Go back to my parents' home? And why are you so flustered?
I apologize. There's a bit of trouble at the venue. I'll explain more when we meet.
Naturally, I was perplexed by my husband's words. What kind of trouble could it be? And it was the first time I'd seen him so agitated. Understood. Calm down. For now, I'll head to my parents' home as instructed.
Take a taxi. I'll be there soon too. See you.
With that, he hung up. Honestly, my mind was filled with question marks. But if Michael said so, there must be a valid reason. And so, driven by an unusual sense of urgency, I changed my destination from my in-laws' home to my own parents' home.
Olivia, what's going on? Isn't today Nancy's funeral?
Well, come on in for now. Let's talk inside.
Both my parents were surprised by my sudden return home. When I explained the situation, they exchanged puzzled glances, mirroring my own confusion. And without my husband's arrival, there was no way to explain everything. We waited nervously at my parents' house. About an hour later, my husband burst in.
Olivia. Are you okay?
I'm fine, but wait, what happened to your hand? I noticed bandages wrapped around his injured hand. His expression was deeply troubled as he touched the wounded area. Then he proceeded to explain the events related to my in-laws and the troubles that had unfolded at their home.
Actually,
it seems my husband has an older sister named Sophia. However, this Sophia was quite a rebellious child who caused trouble for the family since childhood. Apparently, she has been in and out of police custody countless times. Despite all this, Nancy, my mother-in-law, never abandoned her daughter and continued to apologize to those around her. Nancy even shouldered the debt Sophia had accumulated. Sophia promised to repay the debt, pleading with her mother. But then she broke that promise and left home. Sophia was estranged from my husband's family, and until today, they hadn't heard from her. Yet, on the occasion of Nancy's funeral, Sophia appeared at my husband's family home. Although time had passed, Sophia's behavior hadn't matured much. The words that came out of her mouth were shocking.
Mom's dead, right? How much inheritance will I get?
Understandably, my husband was furious. Was that really the first thing a daughter said upon her mother's passing? He then angrily informed Sophia that she had long been disinherited. And according to Nancy, her daughter was no longer Sophia, it was Olivia, me.
Huh? Olivia? Who's that woman? It's unthinkable that she can inherit while the actual daughter can't.
Sophia, upon learning this truth, turned red with rage. She snatched my husband's phone, hurled unsettling words at Michael and me, and drove away from the family home. My husband's injured hand was the result of her biting him during that confrontation.
I immediately remotely locked the phone, but I was concerned that information like the address and Olivia's face might still be accessible through the contacts or photos.
That's unexpected. Hearing my husband's explanation left me momentarily speechless. I had no idea that Nancy had another daughter, let alone one with such a troubled character.
I apologize for keeping my sister a secret. It's a family matter, and I never expected it to come to this.
My husband apologized in distress. We tried to console him while contemplating our next steps.
In that case, it might be best not to return to your home for a while, just in case.
Is our address here safe?
Yes, I haven't stored this address on my phone.
And so, as a precaution, we decided to stay at my parents' home for the time being. And as the night turned into day, the sun rose, and the chirping of birds filled the air. My husband prepared to leave for work.
I'm heading out. If anything happens, contact me on the spare phone.
Sure, take care. I watched him leave with a smile, but internally, anxiety gnawed at me. What if my sister-in-law barged in? What if she attacked us? These worries consumed my thoughts. Whenever I closed my eyes, Sophia's unraged face from the incident at my in-laws' home haunted me. Yet, life at my parents' house remained surprisingly peaceful. Days passed without any significant changes, and the tension that had plagued me gradually eased. Perhaps Sophia's intrusion would naturally fade away. That's the optimistic perspective I held. And then, things began to unfold. A police officer arrived at my parents' home from the nearby police station.
Excuse me. Are Mr. and Mrs. Smith here?
I felt a sense of unease and cautiously asked. What's this about? As it often happens with premonitions, my bad feeling turned out to be accurate. The officer explained that our home had been broken into by a burglar, and they had just received a report from the scene. I immediately contacted my husband and rushed home with him. Upon arriving, we discovered the interior of our house in disarray. Drawers were pulled open, and it looked as if a storm had swept through.
Were any valuables stolen?
Prompted by the officer, we conducted a thorough search of our home under their supervision. Thankfully, important items like passbooks appeared to be safe. However, several $100s in cash that we had kept in the dresser was missing. Interestingly, according to interviews with neighbors, they had seen a suspicious woman near our house over the past few days. Apparently, she had been shouting things like, "Come out," and "Give back the money," in front of our home. I turned to my husband. Michael, could it be?
Most likely, no. Almost certainly Sophia.
He nodded while looking into my eyes. We explained the recent altercation with my sister-in-law to the police, the disruption during my mother-in-law's funeral, the incident with my husband's stolen phone, and his injury. Fortunately, the police responded relatively swiftly, likely due to our prior report about the phone. Afterward, we were called back to the police station for further detailed questioning, and as the day began to fade, we finally returned to my parents' home. The burglar was swiftly apprehended. As it turns out, the culprit was indeed my sister-in-law, Sophia. According to the police, she had audaciously stayed at a hotel near the crime scene after the break-in. She was even casually receiving room service massages when they caught her. Of course, all those expenses were paid using the stolen money from our home. While she admitted to the crime itself, she denied any involvement in the burglary. The situation is more complex than a straightforward case of a family member committing a crime. Nevertheless, we found ourselves summoned to the police station once again. We were escorted to a room by an officer, and there sat a woman with flashy-colored hair, wearing a disgruntled expression. She spoke indignantly, addressing my husband.
Michael, seriously? It's unthinkable for a family member to do something like this.
Sophia showed no remorse whatsoever. It seemed she didn't even consider her actions wrong. Throughout the police interrogation, she maintained this attitude. According to her account, she hadn't broken into our home with the intention of burglary. She claimed to have come to discuss inheritance matters, but since we were never home, she resorted to breaking a window. As for the stolen cash, she insisted it was necessary for her stay at a nearby hotel. In other words, everything was our fault. Her reasoning felt hasty and self-centered. The realization that such a dangerous person held a grudge against me sent shivers down my spine. If I had encountered her alone, who knows what might have happened. Meanwhile, my husband Michael and my sister-in-law continued their heated exchange.
After years of absence, you suddenly show up and act like family? It's truly unbelievable. And give back my phone.
Fine, fine. I'll return it. You locked it right away, so I couldn't use it properly. Just like you. Besides, family is family, right?
Both Mom and I cut ties with you long ago. So the inheritance has nothing to do with you.
Exactly. That woman, Mom, left the inheritance to a stranger like Olivia instead of her own daughter. Was she senile or something?
Don't you dare mock her. I couldn't tolerate Sophia belittling Nancy. Sophia glared at me and spoke with annoyance.
You're Olivia, right? The one who snatched the inheritance I was supposed to receive?
I didn't snatch anything. And I never. I mean.
Just what?
She leaned in, and embarrassingly, I faltered. The words I wanted to say got stuck in my throat. Sophia seemed to see through my hesitation and smirked triumphantly. At that moment, the police officer, who had been observing our interaction, cleared his throat and interrupted.
Everyone, calm down. For now, discuss this among yourselves as family.
He must have deemed it a family matter based on our conversation.
Regarding the complaint and other matters, we'll address those later.
With that, he defused the situation for the time being. And so, a few days later, we arranged a formal meeting at my in-laws' home. The guest room was filled with Nancy's relatives, gathered around a large table. Amidst the tense atmosphere, Sophia spoke first.
If you share the inheritance, I'll let bygones be bygones. You should be grateful to my generous heart.
Sophia's arrogance remained unchanged. Well, that was to be expected. A person who hadn't changed in over a decade wouldn't suddenly transform in a matter of days. She continued to insist.
Hand over the inheritance. Withdraw the complaint.
As if her sense of justice was unshakable. Of course, we had no intention of conceding to her demands.
I've said it repeatedly, but you've been disinherited. So you won't receive any of Mom's inheritance.
Fine. Then how about this? After you and Olivia get your share of the inheritance, just give me that amount.
Do you seriously think such a ridiculous idea would fly?
My husband's frustration was evident. I tried to calm him down and addressed Sophia with composure. Did you read Nancy's entire will? It mentioned you too, not just the inheritance.
I'm not interested in anything other than inheritance. It's probably just a bunch of grudges against me.
No, Nancy worried about you. She regretted things.
Well, that makes it even more reason for her to hand over the assets, doesn't it?
Sophia smirked, visibly displeased. My insides boiled with anger, and simultaneously, I felt an overwhelming sadness. She saw Nancy as nothing more than a convenient tool. Nancy didn't leave you any inheritance because she knew money wouldn't change you. I continued without waiting for her reaction. I won't give a single cent of Nancy's money to someone as despicable as you.
Well, well, look who's talking. And a stranger who isn't even blood related has the audacity.
I don't need to hear that from someone who disregarded family ties. Facing me directly, Sophia momentarily flinched. Then, her eyes sharpened, and she glared at me. It was an ugly, terrifying expression. But this time, I couldn't look away. There's nothing more to discuss. Now, Please leave, I said, maintaining eye contact with the intimidating Sophia. Soon, she lunged across the table, attempting to grab me. In an instant, the relatives and my husband restrained her. 10 minutes later, the police officer who arrived dragged her away. Throughout, Sophia continued to curse, but by the time she was forced into the patrol car, her spirits had deflated, and her shoulders slumped. She was headed to jail. Our formal complaint had been officially accepted. According to reports, Sophia had accumulated substantial debt from loan sharks. Her excessive fixation on Nancy's inheritance likely stemmed from these hidden financial troubles. Regardless, Sophia is now destined for a miserable life, never to see the light of day again. There is no love like a mother's love, my husband muttered.
She brought this upon herself.
We sat in our tidied-up home, reflecting on the recent events. While gazing at Nancy's portrait, my husband spoke up.
By the way, Olivia, I was surprised by how boldly you stood up to Sophia.
Well, once I read Nancy's will. In truth, the day before our discussion with Sophia, I had carefully read Nancy's will. Until then, I hadn't had the chance to thoroughly review it. The will contained heartfelt sentiments, almost like a letter. Each word she wrote stirred something within me. Nancy had always cared deeply for her children. She left no grudges, only concern. And as she bravely departed for the heavens, she wished happiness upon us, her son and daughter-in-law. Perhaps she wanted to do more for her real daughter. Clutching the cardigan I was wearing, I tearfully remembered my mother-in-law. My husband tried to console me.
Olivia, could you knit something for me too?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'll show you the knitting techniques that Nancy taught me. I wiped away the tears, smiling. I resolved to use her inheritance wisely and vowed to live a happy life in her memory.
How did you find this story? If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to our channel. Until next time.